And I'll let everyone know when it's good to go. Just takes a second to load up. Okay, we're good to go. So welcome everyone to our last night of, I can hear myself, our last night of student presentations. We've saved the best for last. So I'm excited for this group to go. We're going to do 3 student presentations, Christian, Andrew, and Sarah, and then we'll take a break. But before we dive into those presentations, I'd like to welcome our guests. So AJ, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is AJ Modi. I actually was part of this program in its initial cohort. And after graduating, I worked with a student called named Orhan. And Evan Pierre, we founded a small studio called Playground Vision. And after that, currently where I'm working is as a UX designer at Sound United, where they work on home audio equipment. So they own several very large brands, and I work on things from physical devices to software and applications for them as well. So glad to see everyone here.
Great, and we're so glad that you're here. And Jill, welcome.
Hi, so I'm Jill De Silva. I started coding when I was 8 and designed web experiences in the early 2000s. I went to Santa Monica College for their graphic design and web design certification years ago. And I'm now on the board of advisors at SMC and love working with students, helping them grow their careers and their portfolios. And so I'm really excited to be here tonight to see the work that you guys are creating, and looking forward to giving you guys some good feedback.
Great. Well, speaking of feedback, so the students are going to do their presentations in a Pechakucha format. Pechakucha means chit chat in Japanese, and it's basically a 20 by 20. So each student has 20 slides and they're asked to present them in 20 seconds. I've assigned you feedback before. So AJ, you're going to be with Christian and Sarah, or yeah, and then Jill to Drew. Sorry, did I have that? What did I say? Switched it back. Jill is going to be with Christian and Sarah, AJ for Drew. And just something that we've observed in the past couple days is giving feedback is a little bit challenging for this presentation. So the things I would ask you to take a focus on because of the format is both the storytelling aspect of it. So what are the students are telling stories as a way to pitch who they are as designers, or who are they becoming as designers, as well as craft. So what is the work that they're showing? And it's a very challenging balance to be able to hit both points. So just keep an eye on those 2 things, as well as things that stand out and are memorable to you, and any other thing that resonates. Christian, you are our first to go for tonight. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Okay, can y'all see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sweet. All right, so hello everybody. I'm Christian Enriquez, and I'm a UX, UI, and game designer. I've always loved and have been curious about storytelling and the design process behind it. But more importantly, I feel I have always had a great empathetic connection with people. And it all started at a very early age. I was born and raised in Santa Monica, and growing up with 2 siblings was a challenge. But my mother was always encouraging with making me feel as if I have to connect to others, be more empathetic, walk in their shoes. And so I started with my hamsters and creating what I thought was a nice, beautiful home, along with a little story as how they got there. But it didn't end there. I looked for other opportunities to enhance my experience. And when a game called StarCraft came out, I just was amazed. The gameplay was amazing, but more importantly was the campaign editor, which allowed me to create my own stories, my own maps, learn about triggers, scripting, but games are for children and I had to grow up. So I worked at Trader Joe's. The people I encountered were amazing. I got to know amazing customers that no matter the age, they expressed their inner child happily. And my design and creativity also flourished there with displays, but the relationships I built with my coworkers I felt were the most important. My hobbies kept me busy during this time, whether it was riding my motorcycle or playing with my dog, or even going hiking. But I knew I wanted something more. And through encouraging friends, I thought I'd give school a nice, good shot. Trying to find my passion was really, really difficult. And unfortunately, like I went through so many different avenues in order to find what my calling was. As you can see here, there was a multitude of them. But oh my God, my script. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna just wing it. It wasn't until UX and graphic design that came into my life that I started realizing my passion. I thought I could make a nice difference with finding what people's needs were and discovering ways to kind of cater to that and introduce new experiences. And I was thankful to get into the IXD program. In there, we built these relationships that were just amazing. The bonding experience we had was unlike anything I've ever witnessed. And what I learned from them was even more incredible. But I guess my process that I learned through others, as well as my experience, really helped me find out what avenue I wanted to take. I found myself leading in a lot of the projects, but I also found myself stepping back to kind of see what I can learn from others taking charge. Pandemic hit though, and working at Trader Joe's was very, very, very crazy. I never witnessed something like this where it almost felt like a movie. People were struggling to find food. Lines were just ridiculous. And the creativity that others went through to protecting themselves was actually kind of amazing. But so we didn't lose our heads. Me and a few other people thought we still maintained the connection. And so we created the SMC community. Through there, we had game nights, movie nights, drawing sessions. It was amazing. We still tried our best to maintain that connection. But people weren't working out. So there was a great opportunity with creating an IoT device that helped with exercising, such as you can see here, Fit. It gave great opportunity for me to discover new ways to do new things. And the process was quite interesting because it called on a lot of my old skills in progressing further with this, from sketching out great designs to finding out great ways that we can kind of use this in a home setting, which people were now stuck to. And it brought the 3D aspect back into my life, which I thought was kind of forgotten. But another thing that came along with the pandemic is unfortunately food insecurity. And I was incredibly excited that we had the opportunity to work with Adobe Creative Jam to help students that were in need. And so we created Food Podge. And it was very difficult because during the pandemic, safety was a huge thing. Trying to do field research, which came easy before, was actually quite difficult. And so we had to get creative, but it didn't stop us from finding ways to help people. The other project that I was happy about was Activision. And we created player roles and team preferences because they were struggling with finding a way that they can kind of help gamers utilize the companion app, which, most people didn't know what it was. But through finding ways to increase friendships with random people, to finding your tribe with assigning roles to one another, we thought that we did find a really, really good way, which we hope Activision kind of utilizes to help gamers be a part of it. Looking towards the future, a few buddies and I have started StackGates Interactive. We're a startup development company, and we focus heavily on lore and narrative-based gaming, as well as creating serious apps for self-improvement and social connections. We want to build a company that people can trust to make outstanding games, but also be a place where development fosters innovations. We have been focusing completely on transparency with our developments by publishing dev diaries, as well as video talks and showing all the hurdles that we have encountered. And we want to provide a structure that hopefully other industries can adopt and make a significant impact in everyone out there. But until that happens, I'm currently seeking many opportunities to better myself through experiences with other companies. And so please keep in touch. I'm Christian Enriquez, and this is how you can reach out.
You did it, Christian. That was great. Thank you
Oh
for
my
sharing.
God.
Well done. Round of applause.
Wow, thank you.
Cool. So we're going to go through all the student presentations first, and then we'll do feedback. Next up is Drew.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. I'm Drew Hemnes, and I'm a brand designer. I was born and raised in San Clemente, California, a small beach community about an hour south of Los Angeles. I spent the vast majority of my childhood actively involved in sports, both in and outside of a school setting. Growing up in San Clemente gave me access to some of the best surfing beaches in California. I vividly remember the wave that got me hooked, which some call the bug. It wasn't the sport that I fell in love with, but the beauty of wave riding, style, music, brands, and the overall culture which surrounds surfing as a lifestyle. As a teen, my love for the ocean led me to become a lifeguard while I was training to become a fireman. I found interest in the medical field from my experience as a lifeguard and love for helping others. After completing the necessary courses and required certifications to become an EMT, that love began to fade as a newfound passion for art, fashion, and design arose. After graduating high school, I started sewing and repurposing vintage clothing for some friends while studying at a local community college. Once I found the confidence to share my designs, I was scouted by a luxury menswear brand in LA called Kaiser Clark. After meeting with the founders, I began working as a creative director and designer for their brand. Mixing my authentic, gritty, DIY design aesthetic to the brand's luxurious Americana feel surprisingly worked. I had no idea what I was doing. With the soft skills I developed as an entry-level, self-taught clothing and graphic designer, I produced a 20-piece collection for the brand's Autumn-Winter 2019 collection. Once the collection was released, it gained attention from celebrity stylists around the world. My designs were worn by some of my favorite artists, such as Young Thug, Ty Dolla $ign, Billy Idol, Steph Curry, and some more. Knowing that my designs were capable of reaching this level gave me a sense of validation as a designer. These achievements have influenced the remainder of my career in the industry. In the fall of 2019, I showed the collection in Paris Fashion Week alongside the brand founders. Running a showroom, communicating with buyers, and going to runway shows left me with a newfound knowledge of the industry as a whole. The energy in the city during those few weeks in Paris made me realize that this is where I wanted to be, showing my own collection someday. In 2019, I moved to Los Angeles to study interaction design at Santa Monica College. This amazing program exposed me to user testing, journey mapping, project management tools, UI, UX, design, user research, storytelling, and more. These skills were applied to multiple projects, which included a partnership with Activision, Snapchat, Adobe, as well as various app designs and concepts. While studying at SMC, I took an internship at another brand called Namias, where I worked as an assistant underneath the brand's founder. This position involved product development, production, styling, accessory design, and more. Understanding what goes on behind the scenes of building a brand has opened my eyes to what it takes to be a leader in the industry. After my job at Kaiser Clark, I was told, whatever you do, don't start a business. If anything, these words sparked my curiosity to do the opposite. But there was a problem. Starting a clothing company would create some sense of competition between brands, which could limit who I could potentially work for. So I got into the jewelry business. Having zero experience within this industry required extensive research and countless hours sourcing materials. Once the materials were gathered, I began designing, set up a photo shoot with some friends, built out a rough Shopify store, and released the collection. To my surprise, I received a few orders and continued this venture. The inspiration behind the brand was deeply rooted in the DIY aesthetic that I developed as a clothing designer. Growing up on the coast and spending the majority of my life at the beach influenced the metals used in my jewelry designs. Each accessory was constructed out of stainless steel, a metal that does not rust, tarnish, fades, scratch, and would eventually play a major role in the brand's story. For my next collection, I took what I learned and began planning my next collection. This process involved website redesign, marketing campaign, rebranding, storytelling, clean visual presentation, line sheet, lookbook, etc., which were all things that were missing from the previous collection. After spending a few weeks roaming the streets of the jewelry district in downtown LA, I found my new source for materials. This company aligned with my beliefs in sustainability, ethics, and materials used all under one roof. This finding made growth and expansion possible due to the endless supply of materials. After creating the collection, I began to plan the e-commerce shoot. Using professional photographers and fashion models that I'd worked with throughout my fashion career, I had a vision to create something up there with the industry leaders on a minuscule budget. After finding the studio space, the vision came to fruition. Once all assets of the collection were finalized, I began on the site redesign. Though it seemed like quite a stretch, I wanted to emulate the leading online retailers and create a minimal, simplistic, and visually captivating shopping experience. After a few long weeks, I finished the website design and set up some marketing add-ons for the site backend. To me, storytelling is one of the most important design elements of a brand. Once I developed my brand statement, I began creating content around the importance of sustainability and non-toxic materials through my own lens. This aesthetic translated through my fascination for luxury, music, industrial design, and coastal awareness. Throughout the course of my education at SMC, learning what it takes to run a successful business in the fashion industry through work experience, and testing out my theories by starting a jewelry brand, I'm now confident that brand design will be my design scope post-graduation. Today, I'm working as a creative director for a startup streetwear label, Troubled Humans, where I'm actively applying my educational and work experience into a wide range of projects. Looking into my future, I wish to continue growing with diverse organizations as a brand designer, an effort to build my own A to Z clothing production, marketing, and design fulfillment service. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune into my story. Here's my contact information, just in case any of my services that I mentioned have any sort of value for you. Thank you so much.
All right, nice work, Drew. A round of applause.
Thank you.
Well done. And then Sarah, you're gonna close us out for this first round.
All right, sounds good. All right. Hey guys, I'm Sarah Pope, and I'd love to tell you a bit about myself, starting with where I grew up. I was born in San Diego, California, and one of my favorite things to do there was go to the tide pools. You could find all sorts of different creatures in these little pools, and it was really just so much fun to explore around there. I grew up in a very nuclear family. We lived far away from any relatives, so we grew very close to each other, and we're really just a tight-knit family. That's me in the middle, leaning against my family, as I still do today. And when I was 6, we moved from San Diego to Marin County in the Bay Area. Marin County is just across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. And this is me taking a walk across the bridge. And with my fear of heights, holding these cables was an exhilarating feeling that I hope to never have to experience again. Honestly, I will forever be trying to live somewhere as picturesque as Marin. My main hobby as a kid and adult is reading. And one year in high school, I read a book a week, totaling 52 books in 1 year. I would stay up all night reading the Harry Potter books on midnight release nights, and I really just feel most happy when I'm reading a good book. I used to be embarrassed about how much I like to read, but now I love that part of me. So right after high school, I attended California State University in Chico. I was studying graphic design and marketing there, and working for the school newspaper as an art director. But this was a really tough time for me. I was not the responsible and organized person I am today. And that eventually caught up to me. Being forced to leave that school taught me a really hard lesson in responsibility. I decided to move down to LA, where I really found my groove and realized my strengths. I finished my graphic design focus, and I'm graduating with a degree in interaction design. And although LA has brought me a lot of great things, I still can't get past the weather here. I really miss the rain and slightly more seasonal changes in Northern California. So now I'll get into some of the work I do as a designer. Here you can see a graphic design piece I made. This poster showcases the typeface Playfair. In graphic design, I really like to keep my designs simple and clean. I really believe that less is more when it comes to visual design. And with my background in graphic design and a further education in interaction design, I have found that what I really like to focus on is human-centered design. So figuring out what a person wants and needs, and then being able to deliver that to them is so rewarding to me. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about a few projects I've done with interaction design. As a part of the Adobe Creative Jam with soda agencies, my team and I designed an app called Feed Mon Pa to solve for food insecurity. In this design sprint, we had 3 weeks to complete the project, and my roles in this project were design researcher and UI designer. We came up with Feed Mon Pa, a two-sided grocery delivery app. One side would be for the older adults where they can place their grocery order from the safety of their home. And the other side would be for volunteers where they can pick a compatible older adult to drop off groceries to. In our research for this project, we found that older adults who were isolated in quarantine were facing food insecurity. And our solution to solve this problem was to incentivize volunteers to get involved in their community by delivering those groceries to those older adults. And in the end, like, both sides really benefited. Gathering research is a critical part of my design process. It sets the stage for the rest of any given project. I always like to immerse myself in whatever topic I'm working with, and I find that this leads me to the best solutions. And adding a little creativity along the way leaves me with a unique and exciting end product. So when the 3 weeks of the design sprint was up, I presented our project on behalf of my team to the Adobe and Soda Agency judges. Our group was one of 10 teams to be chosen to present our ideas out of 35 teams, and we were thrilled to be awarded third place overall. This design sprint really fine-tuned my organizational skills, my presentation skills, and my ability to rapidly prototype designs. And moving forward with any new projects, I was able to bring those skills with me to make for more successful results. And fine-tuning these skills has really helped me gain confidence as a designer. Another great project I worked on was Wonderland. My team and I partnered with IDEO and Beyond 12, and were tasked with using Beyond 12's existing digital platform to mobilize community college students to redesign their institutions. And my team focused on first-generation college students for this. Through our research, we found that first-generation college students didn't have the same level of parental guidance through the college process, so they were more reliant on school support, which wasn't always available to them. And to solve for that problem, we created an online Q&A platform to give students access to school resources 24/7. So as you may have gathered by now, I have a kind of pattern when it comes to how I design. I first research as much as I can about my topic. I then identify a group that needs help, and then I get to design a creative solution for their problems. And this has been a really rewarding process for me, and I find myself making pretty successful designs when I get to follow this process. So in the future, as a designer, I really want to focus on making good products. And to me, this means considering sustainability, inclusivity, and just making a good impact on the world. I'm really most motivated and happy when I get to focus on these things with my work. And I'm actually really excited for the future too. I think being in this design industry has some really good potential for new and exciting things. And we're all graduating from this program next week. And I'm just really happy to be moving into the stage of my life where I get to explore my career. And I'm looking forward to whatever the future holds for me. So thank you guys so much for listening to my story. My name is Sarah Pope. Here's my contact information. And if you want, I would love to connect with you. Thank you.
All right, nice work, Sarah. So round of applause for that awesome presentation. So 3 really great presentations. We'll turn it over to our guest now. So Jill, do you want to kick us off with some feedback for Christian?
Sure. Great job, Christian, Drew, and Sarah. And I just also want to say great job to your instructors at SMC, how they've educated you guys how to tell your story. It took me a long time to figure that out. So I'm really impressed that you guys are getting that. And it really helps people connect with you, not only on your skills, but also on a personal level. And, when you're hiring people, yeah, you want them to have good skills, but you also want to know that you can relate to them or be inspired by them in some other way. So that was great from all of you. For Christian, I really appreciated how you shared your story. I think empathy is always so important, obviously, in design. And, I liked your humbleness. And when you're speaking, you're like, oh, where's my speech? What am I doing? And I liked that it felt like you were switching just from speaking from the heart, like you can prepare and prepare. I publicly speak all the time, and sometimes I mess up, and I do best though when I'm winging it. So, and there's some authenticity that comes through that. So I really resonated with that. So you were all great storytellers. Christian, you had a great aspect of like talking from childhood and that support and empathy, and then Trader Joe's and the displays. And just, again, as you guys go out into the world and as you interview, it's interesting to think like, hey, you know what? This has always been a thread in my life. I may have done a million different things, but this type of empathy or creativity has always been there. And, you've taken the leap to figure out how to do that and how to excel at that. It was interesting that, I think there are at least 2 entrepreneurs in this group, and and it's interesting that you're starting this SGI Interactive. I have a question. Am I able to ask questions, Luke? Yeah. Okay. So I'd love to ask you. You mentioned something at the end. You're creating I'm paraphrasing. You wanted to create a structure that other agencies or teams can adopt. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah. Well, I guess the way we're trying to create a new structure is on giving credit where it's kind of due, which in a lot of, I guess, I won't say names, but there's companies out there which unfortunately kind of take advantage of artists and stuff in a multitude of ways. Where we want to differ is if you're those people that made those huge differences, such as something innovative, like they're actually taken care of. Like this isn't one of those, we paid you for a task, to create some project and then that's it. We want to make sure that the people that make a difference and those products that kind of help everybody out there and continue to are also helping the people that helped actually make it happen. And so and the other way that we want to change is just be completely transparent. There's no secrets. We feel that pretty much gathering, like everyone uniting together with shared knowledge is obviously going to just help the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, full transparency and credit where it's due.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. And I feel like that comes up also when you're talking about community and relationships and the work that you did there. And that's so important. Again, work is a means to an end, and we all need money, right? But that community that you create, the people you work with, the trust you build, and you elevate that creativity so much more when you have that kind of transparency and that support, and you're not throwing someone under the bus or taking credit for someone else's work or anything like that. So that really shined through your presentation.
Thank you.
I'm going to see if there's anything else I see there. Yeah, I can imagine, again, you continuing to create more community-based experiences. Gaming is definitely a community experience, and I'm excited to see what you're going to do.
I'm excited too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice. AJ, do you have some feedback for Drew?
Overall, great job. Yeah, everyone. But so we're hopping to Drew. Oh yes. Okay. So Drew, great presentation. I thought. Yeah, you took me through, and I think throughout your presentation, it was very clear about which skills you basically learned on each kind of job, right, you were doing. So I think one thing that I might have liked to see, the fashion slides were very, very nicely photographed, and I think some of the other photographs could be elevated as a brand person. You know, it's very visual, and so obviously in the early slides when you're going through history, but yeah, I mean, you hooked me with the surfing picture. I'm living in San Diego right now, and lived in North County, so totally, you know, that was very appealing, and it's a great photo. I also think that you might have missed an opportunity to stay on that where you grew up, and I mean that is a place with like storied culture of surf. You know, surf culture, and so many brands came out of there, right? Southern California, especially in that area. So that's a narrative I think, you know, to tap into, and kind of link it further on down the line. So um, so I'll go back to the kind of skills. You know, you name dropped. I thought that was very excellent. I mean, when you name drop stuff like Steph Curry, I'm like, oh, okay, like you have clout there. So that's always nice to see. And at a certain point, though, I think the skills and experience came through the presentation. And if you could just take a little bit more time on what your ultimate goal was, right? So two things that I would have liked to see more is maybe just like your mission statement. You mentioned a few times of like sourcing sustainably, right? Where does that come from? You know, again, you can link it back to growing up by the ocean. You see, you know, those common threads, right? Where you're coming from, instead of just sprinkling it in like sustainably sourced resources and metals. And I guess the other thing is just a little bit more time at the end of, you gave this great like overview of like all the skills you had, you know, through this whole project. You push it through the website, you created that. And at the end, it was just so quick. I was like, oh my gosh, he does all these things in a nice recap, and just spending a little bit more time and let that sink in, I think would be really, really nice. I mean, overall, you covered a lot. And I think there's just small tweaks that can be done, because that's all I'm commenting on here. I wish I could speak, you know, as good as about myself as well as you guys just did. So yeah.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And then Jill, if you don't mind, Sarah.
Yeah, for sure. Sarah, thank you for your great presentation. Again, storytelling. It's interesting how our past influences our future, and we really never know how it's going to do that. You know, everybody did this a little bit, but I like how you shared, you used to be embarrassed about how much you read, but now it's something that you're proud of. And again, that's another characteristic that people can connect with, whether they aspire to be a better reader, or they also read. So when I'm hiring people and I'll work with them, I'm always looking for someone that has qualities greater or better than myself. And, you know, I would love to read more now. So that really triggered something in me. 52 books in 1 year. I mean, that's incredible. I appreciated how you were speaking to your evolution as a graphic designer, visual designer, to human-centered design. And I think that's an interesting story, because we never do just one thing, you know, especially in interaction design or UX design or any graphic design. There's always something that led us there. And I think you did a good job of like, this led to this, led to this, and it's showing an evolution of your skill set and who you are. And it was very apparent that I liked your 1, 2, 3, you know, simple steps of how you start a project, what you do, and how you go through that, because that's really high level in a nutshell what we should be doing as best practices. And you really applied that. That was obvious that you applied that in your work. The Feed Mon Pop project that you did for the Creative Jam with the Adobe and the soda agencies, you got 3rd place overall. I love that community. I work with soda agencies through Adobe all the time, and they're just top level talent. So if they're being the judges of that, it's a vote of confidence in your skill set and what you're doing. So I don't even have to see your work to be like, okay, if they liked it, it's good, you know? And so, yeah, I'm curious to see your project. I'm curious to see everyone's portfolio when you're done. was thinking about the Wonderland again. You're solving people's problems, and you spoke in a way that is familiar to me for a lot of people that go through this type of educational platform. It's also, it's kind of a demographic thing. You want your work to make a difference. It's I feel like at the end I wasn't super clear on where you imagined yourself, what type of role you imagined yourself in. I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that, but you may not know yet, right? So, and that's okay. You may not know that opportunity until that comes to you, like, you know what, that feels like a good fit. I can grow there. And I think that but envisioning somehow of like what you would like to do, what type of role you would imagine, will help bring it to fruition, as well as help people understand, okay, what does she want to do? What does she want to grow? So I think just that little piece there, sustainability, a positive impact on the world. Again, I think every designer wants to have that feeling. We don't want to just do work to do work. We want to know, we want to go to bed at night thinking we actually made a difference. I liked your Wonderland example for helping college students, first generation, really understanding their problem. And then again, back to the feed mom and pop, finding older adults and volunteers and helping that out. Like, it's not just one user group, it's two. And how does that work together? And that's a very challenging consideration because you're looking at mindsets of two different groups. So overall, I think you did a great job with your storytelling. I personally want to know, what do you want to do next? Luke, can I ask that real quick? Like, Sarah, where would you imagine yourself? Like, when you're finished with graduation, are you gonna take a vacation? Are you immediately looking for work? What type of thing? Do you want to do an agency thing? Do you want to work for a particular brand, or maybe entrepreneurial like the rest of your the other two presenters today?
Yeah, well, I am actually taking a trip. I'm going to be taking a road trip with my sisters to like Zion National Park and Moab and then Grand Canyon and Joshua Tree on our way back.
You deserve
that'll
it.
be right after. Thank you. Yeah, that'll be right after. And then it's really hard to answer what I want to do because I have interest in graphic design and UI UX design. So any kind of job around with a company that deals with something like that would be great. And I'm just eager to take any opportunity I can.
Yeah, to gain that experience. I imagine you, not to project, but I imagine you working with like non-government institutions or again, people solving civic challenges through digital or non-digital solutions, just based on how you told that story. And, there's plenty of opportunities for that type of thing here in LA. So I'm excited to see what you're going to do, Sarah.
Cool. Thank you so much for the feedback.
Yeah. Have a great trip.
Thank you.
That was great. A question for our guest is, in light of the presentations you just saw, when you, if you've ever been in a position for hiring students coming out, or just meeting other designers, what are some of the things that you're looking for when designers present their work and tell their stories? What are some things that you both look for?
I'll start. I'm looking for a sense of humor. I'm looking for humility, kind of like Christian, giving credit where credit's due. So it's like, one of the most infuriating things I've ever experienced in my career is someone taking credit for my work or not giving that kind of credit. It's very diminishing and it's heartbreaking. And it's never just one person. If you're in a group project or anything like that, it's that group ideation that comes to light. Everybody's elevating each other and the creativity just explodes. So I'm looking for, I did this. Did you do it by yourself? I don't care if, I think some people might say that otherwise, but I don't need to know that you can do this by yourself. I do need to know that you can work well in a group. I do need to know that you can take feedback and again, give credit where credit is due. So yeah, sense of humor, again, diverse interests outside of just design or design school, which you guys have already shown that in your presentations, that you're not just this, I just design and that's all I am in my life. What is that depth? I want to get to know that. And I also, whenever I'm hiring someone, I want to know what they want to learn. How do they want to grow? How do they want to stretch? Like, what do they feel comfortable in? And where do they feel kind of uncomfortable? And what do they want to learn more? So that's, I don't know, you can ask Chase later if that actually works for you. But I definitely think that candor is the thing, because anybody can learn how to do these things. Now, whether you have innate skill or not is a different story. But I think someone that loves what they're doing and brings that eagerness to learn and grow every day, I think is what I'm looking for.
How about you, AJ? What do you think?
Well, Jill, I don't know if I have anything to add to that. But for sure.
That's what went first, AJ.
Nice, awesome, good job. I mean, yeah, it's being a pleasure to work with. You can hire the smartest person in the room, but if they're a complete, I'm not gonna say the word, but you all know what I'm trying to say. It's not fun. And I've only been in positions where you'd have to hire someone and a few times or work with other designers. But yeah, it's a team sport, and really, like, as you go on into the world, and whether you're starting at a new company or your first internship, it's like, yeah, there are those VP levels and CEOs and all that, but down there it's everyone working together to kind of produce something. So, and that's really like a really important role. So, and I think just being through this program, you definitely learn that because you're in groups every single day. So it does prepare you for that.
And one other question that I had, just in the spirit of this, was a through line through three of the three presentations for our first group was that they were designing for good, that there was something that was bigger than themselves. And I'm bring myself into this, the generation of designers. It's not too long ago, folks, but these were considerations that didn't come up. We didn't talk about these issues. And I'm just really impressed that this is front and center of your own design practices. And so Jill and AJ, your thoughts on how representing design for social innovation, design for good, and the value of talking about it and how to talk about it and how it impacts a design.
AJ, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, look, I mean, we're different generations for sure, but I mean, one company that I always look back to as kind of the stalwart, or my prototype, right, of like a company that puts in vision is when Yvon Chouinard started Patagonia, or what would eventually become Patagonia, right? There's a person who saw a need for himself, but also wanted to create take a chance and say, like, can this thing exist in capitalism and actually do good, right? And that's a very powerful experiment. And I think yeah, so that's kind of the model, but it really takes a lot of hard work if you're joining a company. I've been working at Sound United for right around 2 years now, and I just see the flip in, okay, how can we start creating better packages so we're not wasting as much styrofoam, right? Putting styrofoam in the water. But it takes a while to get there. And it takes I think initiative from within the company to say, like, this is something that we need to do. So that can either come externally or internally from employees, and hopefully both. But yeah, it's great to see. I'm sorry, I totally forgot your question. Like, Joey, I don't know if that.
Awesome. Well, I think, again, I'm trying to remember Luke's question exactly, but it was around social impact and designing for social impact. And whenever anybody is an emerging designer, I'm always encouraging them, if they need to build out their portfolio more, do a social impact project, do something, especially of the generation that you guys are in, because when you talk about that project and you speak to me about it, there's going to be a light in your eye. It's something you believed in. It's something you cared about. And having that type of excitement about the work that you're doing. If you like the project, you're going to be excited to wake up every day. You're going to feel like you're making a difference. And when you go to, again, a job interview, you're showing your work, you're talking about a project, that excitement comes through. And so I think it's really important as emerging designers to have something, whether it's social impact or not, but something that you feel inspired by and excited about. I want to feel a little bit of that. I also like to see a little bit of nervousness when people are interviewing, because this means something to them, right? So you don't have to be stone cold when you're doing it and have no nerves whatsoever. Just, again, being your authentic self. but yeah, finding if there's is a social impact, something that you are inspired to do, whether you can work directly with that organization or you can see what they're doing and come up with your own case study around it and publish that. I think, that's, it speaks volumes to you and your character and what you're doing. And like I said, you'll be enthusiastic when you're giving that presentation.
That's great. And I think I caught a little bit of that passion and glimmer in the eye of the first three presenters today when they were talking about their work, which was really, really awesome to see. We're going to take a 5-minute break. So we'll be back at 7:52 and then we'll go with our next three. So feel free to go grab a cup of coffee, water, whatever, and we'll be right back. All right, we are coming back. Hopefully no one got a cup of coffee because they would probably be up all night. So sorry for that advice. Water is probably good at this point. So we're up for round two, and in this round, AJ, if you could keep an eye, direct focus on Omzi and Chase, and Jill with Will. That should be pretty easy. Hopefully I'll remember that one.
Yep.
Omzi, are you there and ready to go?
I can't start the video, but I am here. It says the
Okay,
host.
let me, there we go. I think when you left, yes, there we go.
Oh no,
You're good.
don't look. Don't look at my stuff. Where am I? All right. Am I sharing right now?
You are not.
Oh, thank God. We're okay. All right. Okay. Un momento. Sorry, I am waiting for my script to load on my iPad, and it is not loading, which is making me very nervous.
You got this. Omzi, do you want Will to
Dang it.
jump in?
I shit, I was so prepared until this last moment.
I can go.
Give me one sec. Oh, okay. Will you?
Yeah, I got you.
I'm sorry.
Nice. Love this. All right,
Thank
yeah.
you so
You got
much.
this, Omzi. Chillax.
Yes.
Take the stage.
Let's see. Luke, I think you need to stop sharing sound.
Uh,
I'm just gonna
There you
hit continue. I think it'll kick it out, but okay.
you got it. Yeah.
I was having some browser issues too, so let me know if this crashes for whatever reason. So, hi, AJ, Jill, everybody out there watching. I'm Will, and I'm an interaction designer and researcher. Over the years, I've held many titles. I've been a professional cook, a photographer, a paralegal, a program coordinator, and also a K through 12 educator. Recently, I was asked if given the option, who I'd like to meet, alive or dead, and realized that I arrived at an unlikely choice. This is Nicholas Lidstrom, someone that I find personally to be very inspirational. Nicholas is widely regarded to be one of the top defensemen to ever play the game of hockey. His presence on a team brought a collected sense of stability, so much so that he earned the nickname the perfect human. I like to think of him as a great model of what it is to be a team leader. And here's me. I thought this was my chance to snag a game-winning goal. I missed this shot. We lost this game. A decidedly un-Nicholas Lidstrom moment. Lidstrom embodied poise, balance, and strategy that elevated the game of everyone else around him. This was by design. His dedication to process, strategy, and poise under pressure are what made him a great leader. These are my teammates, a great group, but undoubtedly the most angry they'd ever been with me. Those hockey sticks could have doubled for pitchforks. This is what educators refer to as a teachable moment. I had overstepped my role and forgotten about the team, and our winning season suffered. I hadn't yet learned the value of seeing the bigger picture. Since then, I've learned the value of looking at the people around me and utilizing their shared skills to help elevate projects. Efficiency of movement, a clearly defined process, and working collaboratively with great people is what I look for when I approach my design work. Design is like hockey in that way. Many talented individuals working toward a collective goal. Sure, I can build beautiful things on my own. A poster, an illustration, or a photograph are some of the many ways I express myself creatively. But I'm looking to amplify the scope of my projects, and I can't do that alone. I've found an old African proverb to be very true in this regard. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. My work in the Interaction Design program is a reflection of this understanding and approach. Navigating the various needs of remote teams and the expectations of real-world stakeholders during fast-paced, labor-intensive sprints afforded me an education I hadn't ever encountered in life. These larger scale projects helped me understand the value of clear communication and cooperation. Working with Activision required copious amounts of research, prototyping, and user testing, but moreover, I found the greatest value from this project was in developing a collective understanding among the group. The second half of the project presented the unique challenge of merging research with another group to rally together. We were able to develop a high-fidelity prototype that was created based on insights from real users and manifested itself in a viable, real-world solution our stakeholders could responsibly take to market. There were so many places where this project could have failed, but the team I worked in trusted in each other, and we completed an impressive volume of work. Going into the project for IDEO and Beyond 12, I took the lead and worked diligently to provide stability and dependability to the team. We were tasked with finding a solution for our stakeholders, designing with heart, and using our privileged position as designers to advocate on behalf of people that historically have not had a voice in the decision-making process. Designing a service for first-generation community college students was no easy task. Developing artifacts that would serve to align the vision of our group with the hopes and fears of the individuals we were designing for was a constant exercise in empathy. We had to move strategically, but also honor the journey and struggle held within the truths we were entrusted with. The education I gathered in the IXD program also made me painfully aware of what a privilege it is to have an understanding of the design thinking process, a privilege that many marginalized peoples are not afforded and that commands us to arrive at design solutions that work towards creating equity by amplifying the voices that need to be heard. I've also been challenged to constantly examine my biases and think about the consequences of the things I create. Going into the program, I held the belief that designing with good intentions and being a good person was enough, but boy was I wrong. My newfound privilege would also need to be checked by a critical thinking process that provided equity for others. As a K-12 educator, I've had the opportunity to help diverse students from all over the greater Los Angeles area. And at times, I must admit, I felt helpless. The obstacles these families faced are large and systemic, and while the work I did within this space was good, it also felt minuscule compared to the large-scale suffering and inequalities I witnessed. I saw the opportunity to share the privilege I had been afforded from my design education with students from my own community. Like them, I suffered from a lack of arts education and success models growing up. The working class neighborhood I serve views creatives as liabilities, and I wanted my students and our community to see the value their creativity could bring. I'm a firm believer that creativity is equally distributed, but opportunity isn't. I saw the untapped potential of the young creatives from my community and reached out to other educators at the school I work at. When I was swiftly told that there was simply no funding for arts education, I was crushed, but not deterred. I knew that I had to find a way to cut through the red tape. I refused to take no for an answer. Like Lidstrom, I needed to find a way to rally my team and get a victory for my students. I saw the little creatives that smiled back at me every day and knew that there had to be a way to design a solution for them. I needed to appeal to the decision makers somehow, so I looked at what metrics they did value and developed my curriculum around it. I pointed to our declining attendance numbers and test scores. The same people who repeatedly told me it was impossible would grow to become my greatest advocates. I recruited English language learners for an 8-week after-school program. I focused on developing foundational English skills and boosting critical thinking through design exercises made specifically for children. For all 8 weeks of the program, I had a line of students out the door. I had tapped into a need, and the little creatives developed into a supportive community that worked to uplift each other. They storyboarded, created posters with calls to action, card sorted, and learned to articulate their creative decisions. Test scores, attendance, and their collective sense of confidence rose. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I've come to terms with the fact that I'm a bleeding heart. The problems of the world used to overwhelm me, but going forward, I'm excited to implement the skill set I have gathered in my design education. I feel that I'm in good company and am part of a winning team of other like-minded souls. I think that's a championship squad even Lidstrom would envy. Thanks for listening.
All right, Will. That picture of the little creatives gets me every time. Gosh, is there onions in the? Wow. All right. Omzi, how is the script up and ready to go? All right.
It is all good. All right.
Take the stage, sir.
Sharing my screen. And go. Hello, everyone. My name is Omzi Sastoon Genus Pitchford Martinez. I can't tell you everything about my name in the moment I have, but I could tell you that my mom's name was Jane, but she changed it to Inyaj, and my dad's name was Dean, but he goes by Rasta Masu. They weren't together long, but they shared a complete version of the typical. Here's my mom on the left. She was from a big Italian family in New York, the youngest of 7 children. She went to Berkeley at 17 years old, but before she graduated, she ran away from her family and hitchhiked across the US. She said that decision saved her life. It was in Venice Beach, California, that she met my dad, an artist from Belize. We lived with my dad when I was a toddler, but my mom took us and left his crazy ass and flew back to New York to my completely dumbfounded grandma. Living with my mom's side of the family was terrific, but eventually we moved back to Venice Beach, where we truly felt at home. And that's my grandma, that's my aunt, that's my cousin. Venice Beach was where I spent the majority of my childhood. Outside of school, I spent a lot of time just directly on the beach, surfing and dancing and creating art and music. My mom, my stepdad, and nearly everyone else I knew were street vendors and buskers and bohemians or children of them. One of the things I looked forward to was every Wednesday there was a group of people that set up on the beach to feed everyone for free. They still do that today. They're a decentralized anarchist organization named Food Not Bombs. One of the lead organizers here is a woman named Penny Kennedy, shown here being thanked for her hard work. Moving from Venice Beach to Santa Monica is strange, because how does a crazy kid with no respect for authority or order, raised by a village of artists and outcasts and anarchists, even begin to work for a modern tech company? Well, it was a slow change that changed. Oh, and one of those changes was thanks to Venice Arts. It was a huge part of that adaptation. Since the ages from 6 to 18, I took classes here learning Photoshop, animation, comics, photography, film, and much more. Not only did I have an incredible time here, I also got scholarships to such things as Idlewild Summer Camp and Otis College of Art. I also spent a lot of time at the library. Not only was it access to a live computer, but I read a ton. I was a huge fan of fantasy, from Roald Dahl to J.R.R. Tolkien, and I still am today. I'm a huge fan of social infrastructure because of it, where people can exist and learn without expectations to pay money. I also got super into gaming. I got my first built my first gaming PC in high school, and I've done a great deal of socializing with people through multiplayer online games such as RuneScape, shown here. I found that it's the best medium for me to express my authentic self without judgment. And unsurprisingly, I became very politically active. I became a democratic socialist. And when I was with the club, Santa Monica College DSC, which I helped begin, I met Peggy from Food Not Bombs when I was in a protest from LA City Courthouse. It was an incredible moment that reminded me why I was doing everything. So my family has always been very musical. Recently, I just started picking up the guitar for the first time, as I usually played the drums and the bass guitar. I started using GarageBand, and that's been a blast. And I made background music for one of my other products. I also made products. I made a GameCube controller for a couple years ago. I designed it and sketched it out, and then I sent it out to a company called Chaos Controller, who put it together to me. I look at it as like a big stunt on other players to show that I have a competitive edge over them. There's another game I made. It's called Squabble. I made a couple card games, but this is one of them. And basically you combined cards in your hand to make cards such as the Flaming Punch of Doom. And the design is based off like one of those cartoon clouds that form when people fight. I also made some animations. I always loved doing animation as a kid. And nowadays I use Adobe After Effects instead of Adobe Flash. I still use the same storyboard techniques, but now it looks kind of cool instead of hand-drawn. And I made a lot of friends. So at the bottom left, I have my friends from the Democratic Socialist Club. It started off with 5 people, and now it became more than 80 people. On the right, I have the friends I've had for the longest time. Top left is the IXD group, which I'm sure you're familiar with them. And the other people are from other people from SMC. And with the Crosswalker app, speaking of IXD, this was the first and one of my favorite programs we did. Basically, it was an app that helped people with walking disabilities actually get across the street in time before the light turned red. We also worked on Food Matters. It's also an app that is dear to me because it helped people find food pantries that were near them. It was part of the Adobe food program. And essentially how it worked is it took this tattered paper and put it on a phone app that let you to actually find things. And then one of the most recent things was the action board. It was a forum for students to input their ideas and suggestions and needs to find support from other students who agree. Then the school admins can respond and broadcast the progress that's been made on implementing it. This would solve a lot of issues with communication between the school and admin. So there's a time where I looked at the period of time back in Venice and think my parents are nuts. And like, how could anyone live like that? It's such an unstable fashion. But really, when I think about it, they're actually some of the most sane people I know. They were always happy, and I was super happy. And so really, in a lot of ways, it was really stable. And it's sort of something I'm looking forward to now. And I want to find that stability. And so these are some books I've been reading. This on the left is a short story, The Egg and the Way is Zen by Alan Watts, and The Dispossessed, which is a fantasy novel, but it's a great look at what a society could be. And here's my information at the bottom. And that's a little bit from about me. Thank you.
Awesome. Nice work, Omzi.
Thank you.
Well done. All right, we're having a BBC dad moment here. All right, guys. And last but not least, Chase.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Yep.
All right. Hi, everyone. Let's start. Hi, so I'm Chase. I'm a UX designer. I came to the US back in 2002 with my single mom. This is us at Universal for the first time. And I could barely speak English then. I think really the only 2 English words that I knew then were just sorry and thank you. But since then, I've learned a few more. And here are some of the most impactful books that I've read and learned from. I love reading about human psychology, sociology, and just why people act the way that they do. I'm also a fairly active person, and really what I strive for is balance across different areas, so physical, emotional, social, and spiritual. And then in my current work, I've been a professional hairstylist and an educator for over 10 years with a specialization in precision cutting. And in recent years, my design work has evolved and takes on a completely different meaning. So whether you're a client sitting in my chair or the customer of the product I'm working on, it's important for me when my work positively impacts the world around me. And what I'm really passionate about is work that has a social impact, and I seek to avoid any reproduction of inequalities. And so I hope that with the projects that I'm about to show you, demonstrate examples of this and my passion for the field and my own resilience to overcome any challenges that will come my way. And so here are just a few that I've selected for tonight. This is, the first one here is Beyond 12 Cohorts. It was a collaboration our senior class had with IDEO, and we looked at first generation college students and the issue of how 1/3 of them are likely to drop out of college. So we proposed a service blueprint of possible interventions to help them get set up for success before they start the first day at school. And then the next one is called Potato. We designed this mobile app in a 2-week Adobe sprint that focuses on minimizing the shame in receiving public benefits. And our concept solution connected low-income seniors with food retailers so that they can shop for their food anonymously and promote healthy eating habits. And so outside of work in school, I've also volunteered my time with this organization called ClinWiki. They are a nonprofit that provides a tool for cancer patients to search for clinical trials. And I wanted to apply my skills in a real world setting while creating impact for the organization. And so with this project, I wanted to show you a bit of my work in the process and what I got to be a part of. And also a quick shout out to Jill for connecting me with this opportunity, and Marcelo, who is in the audience, who helped me with this project. Could not have done this without you, so thank you so much. And so straight into it. The team's mission is to help improve access to clinical trials, increase participation, and ultimately improve cancer outcomes. And so the reason why I chose this project is because kind of what Jill mentioned earlier, I really wanted to push what I learned in school, and of course do it without all of Luke's modules and class lessons. And so as far as my responsibilities, I help to organize or kick off with our stakeholders to understand the project and the team mission. And so I chose to focus on what the company needed help them the most with. And that was the search experience, because from my heuristic evaluation, it's an important foundation so that future goals of the company can be met. And so besides interviews and product testings, I use a card sorting exercise in order to discover the priorities of criteria for what patients look for in a trial. I then synthesize my findings and deliver a set of wireframes to illustrate my recommendations on how to improve the tool's usability. And so what was the problem? The problem was that the complexity of the tool is a barrier to entry in recruitment for trial participation. It's currently running on a lot of assumptions about the users, and without a clear understanding of the pain points and behavior, the tool is inefficient in what it's supposed to do. And so let's take a look at some of the insights that we were able to find. Number one, the main environment that the user gets dropped to the search here on the left-hand side that you see, there's just a lot of choices that you can do here, and that cause a lot of dead ends and choice paralysis. And then number two, there were a lot of improperly placed user interface elements that made navigating between pages really difficult. And then number three, once the patient see their search results, there are just too many studies to sift through. And imagine the physical state and the emotional state that they already in. It's really hard to know if that study is something that might be promising for them, because diagnosis can be very nuanced. And so the challenge that I encountered with this project was sifting through hours and hours of recordings. And after struggling for a while, I had to take a step back. I zoomed out. I looked at all of the patients holistically. I jot down the friction points, and I asked, like, what were they trying to do and why? And that was the turning point in the project, was when I saw how the tool was being used. And so I proposed that. So with that, I proposed that the search process be divided into three distinct phases. And so number one here, on the home screen, there is a guided search and a free text search. And on the left-hand side, the guided search here is because ClinWiki isn't a search engine like Google. So this is meant to help where patients feel less overwhelmed when they start out with just a few input fields to kind of nudge them along. And so after clicking search, they will head into phase two. So this is where the patient can start to narrow down on the search results. That are specific to their condition. So for example, with ALS, it does affect your breathing ability. So certain trials may require the patient to have a certain breathing score to participate. And then phase three is the ability to include any additional advanced filters to their search. This is hidden behind a button, but it's there to anticipate and capture additional nuances of certain diagnosis that might help to narrow down the search. Because imagine if you have 300 studies to sift through, this can be especially useful. So those were just the recommendations that I have suggested for the company. And so in the amount of time that I got to work with ClinWiki, I gave them a clear understanding of who the users are and how the tool could better be improved to truly meet the needs of those who are looking for clinical trials. And so in summary, I wanted to show you one last mini project that illustrates who I am as a designer, and this task to place in this box something that symbolizes me. And so since I grew up playing with paper airplanes, it's on my neck, I chose this as my object. Because if you think about it, when you toss a paper airplane, you can only it will only go so far. You have to go where it's at and pick it up, tweak it a bit, and then toss it again. And sometimes it's going to end up in the most unpredictable ways. But I find that to be quite symbolic of my own journey, because through my years in hair and then through school and in UX design, because no matter how many times I've hit the ground, I will always move forward, pick up where it's at, and put it in flight again. So thank you for listening to my story today. These are my links. Don't hesitate to reach out and say hi. So yeah.
Well done, Chase. Thank you so much. These have all been very, very impressive tonight. So thank you for sharing, all of you. So we're going to start with, we'll go in order if that's all right. Jill, do you have some feedback for Will?
I do. So Will, first of all, I was like, wow, he's such a great speaker. And then you said you were also a teacher. And I'm like, oh, that's why. You know, one of the things I like to speak about, because I used to teach elementary and middle school, then I taught yoga, and now I teach UX design. So I can't escape teaching. And one of the things that I think is really important about being an educator, especially as a designer, if you work with clients, you have to educate them a lot. Like, what is it you're doing? Why are you doing this? Why is this necessary? Why is this important? So you're kind of championing the work that you're doing from an educational standpoint. So I think being an educator really helps with that. You know, I love the story. I definitely teared up when I saw, you know, the kids in the pictures. And it was interesting because as you told the story, you were talking about a real life thing. Were you teaching while going to SMC for this program, or was this prior to SMC?
Yeah, I still work at a.
You still teach. Yeah. Got it. Okay, cool. Because I'm like, he did design thinking with the students, and I was wondering like if it was, you know, inspired by your learnings at SMC. And it was interesting because you gave some metrics. So you know, everyone looking for jobs, it is important to kind of benchmark your suggestions. And, you know, even if you got buy-in or not, you still did the thing. And then you had the results that you needed. And I think that's really hard for emerging designers to do, is to champion their ideas and kind of do some things anyway, and trust their instincts that they're doing the right thing and that they're going to have the results that are deserved. So the fact that you were able to increase test scores and attendance because of the initiative that you did, that is a metric. So benchmarking as a designer is really important. And again, it's a social impact metric, which is even better. So it wasn't a digital solution necessarily, but what you did is, you know, you evolved the system so that you could help people, which I think is true design thinking when you really think about it. You know, a lot of things are digital and you know, have an interface and things like that, but what you did not. And I think that's what's really impressive about your story. You were able to apply that to a real life situation. Again, great speaking, great storytelling. And you know, I think something that came through, whether you intended it or not, maybe with some of the words that you used, is your ability of leadership. I think through the person that you could speak to, that may be passed, or if you could speak to anyone, who would you speak to? And, you know, I think you're already doing this in your own classroom. You're creating community, you have you know, you're creating trust, you're creating stability. And that's true for all teams. Again, if you don't have trust in your team, if people are not always trying to elevate each other, I mean, everybody has down days, obviously, but again, that creativity just flourishes when you have a safe environment. If you're worried about food, or you're worried about certain things, or if you're worried about the fact that you don't speak English as your first language, you're going to feel shy, you're going to feel intimidated. But when you feel like you're in a safe environment, you know, kind of the sky's the limit. I feel the same thing, same way about designers working in teams together. You know, there's I don't think there's a place for shame or, you know, admonishment. And the fact that you're able, again, to do this in real life in a non-digital situation is really inspiring. I do have a question for you, Will. Are you planning on continuing to teach even as you finish this program? Are you looking to stop teaching and do design work with or for someone? Are you planning on doing both? I'm just curious about what your next steps are.
So at the tail end of the Beyond 12 sprint, I've contacted them and we've been doing UX research work with them. I'm not exactly sure where things will end up. I absolutely love working with kids and seeing those kind of aha moments where when they realize that they are given permission essentially to do things that maybe are outside of the realm of their understanding. So that's very rewarding for me, but design is as well. And hopefully there's some sort of interplay between the two, but we'll see.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
AJ, you have both Amzi and Chase.
Yeah, thanks. I'll start with Amzi, but I get the dichotomy there. Yeah, so Amzi, I mean, yeah, there's an excellent hook in there from the start. You know, it's yeah, I think where you came from, it really came through in your presentation that you are an individual, right? And that was incredibly clear through every piece of the information you shared through that. So I think what I wish maybe I would have liked to see is the threads kind of be woven in together more a little bit, right? So you have all the threads there of where you came from, the individuality, and how it kind of shaped you, and what interests your friends, your social groups, right? And weave into that fabric a little bit more, because at the end I felt it was a little bit, you know, abrupt, right? The story stopped. There's this picture of a wizard, and suddenly I'm, you know, I'm like, oh, that's the end. And I was sad. So so I think in terms of that, it's some basic, you know, structure. And I would just, at the end of it, right, is, I think the wrong question may be like, what do you want to be? But, you know, what would you like to do with these skills, right? Of these interests and passions, right? And I think that's maybe could be hard, like basically solidified a little bit more, right? It's implied that you're interested in social good and you know, democracy, and being political and speaking out political your politics, and but yeah, what exactly are you taking these skills, right? So yeah, and that can be a broad thing, you know, swath of things. So I think those are kind of the two things that I wish I saw more in your presentation. But I think it's a matter of reduction rather than addition. And you know, you've got all the stuff there, so that's a matter of reduction. So I'm gonna move on to Chase. Yeah, you're welcome. And so yeah, the Chase was like, first of all, I appreciated everyone's in the second portion. I appreciated the mix up of the narrative structure. I think that was pretty evident, and just good job on all of you of, you know, choosing interesting things to keep us as viewers just watching slide after slide. It was great to see that. So the backstory is extremely strong. You start out with the traditional narrative, and that really came through. So I think in terms of reducing, you had a great quote there, reducing the reproduction of inequality, right? And so, and that as a segue to the case study that you're going to be focusing on, right? Which is amazing. I mean, that's an amazing project to work on, and clearly your work kind of showed through there. I think you did a great job presenting about your process, right? Exactly what you did and why you did it. I think what could even make it probably stronger is I have a note here that's written. You know, focus. There's a lot of I when you're presenting. Like, I did this, I did that, and I would just, I'm saying it now a lot too, but just sprinkle in a little bit of like where your solutions help the user. There's a quote you said that's, you know, this person at the advanced search, they have to search through 300 like things of listings, and they didn't even have UI. So put that user into your presentation a little bit more, right? You zoomed out of the data, you looked at all the, you know, videos, you interviewed all these people, put those people, or just bring them up in the presentation. I think that would anchor it a little bit more, or for us to empathize with what sort of work you did. And to that point, if you have any metrics, like Jill mentioned before, you know, something that you benchmarked previously and after, you know, that's also great to share. You know, what sort of, how did your designs actually affect, you know, once implemented, affect something? So I think there's, you know, it's obviously a great body of work, and, you know, I'm offering some small suggestions here. And, you know, I guess a question for you would also be just where do you see yourself? What would you like to do? Where would you like, in what space, or yeah, space domain would you like to work in?
Yeah, a lot of my interests have always been around health, fitness. So anything that kind of advance our, can't find the words, our human species in that way have always been an interest of mine. So I think so area be like healthcare, health tech, and yeah, so all of that space.
Yeah, I mean, as we saw in this past year, I mean, there's some dire need for some better UX in that space as well. So
yeah, thanks for your feedback as well, AJ.
Absolutely.
We're right about at time, but I do want to ask our guests to weigh in on one thing. So this group was, and just the way that things work out, this is random, was a book group. So lots of recommendations. So I was trying to screenshot stuff, which I thought was cool. And, you know, the formal education will stop very shortly from SMC, but learning never ends. So I was wondering if either of you could recommend some sort of like advice or tips or things that will help continue the growth and learning of these of our presenters tonight.
Yeah, my recommendation is to keep practicing, keep doing the work. I think you can learn theory over and over again, but it's not until you put it to practice that you actually learn the depth. And so a lot of times students will, or emerging designers will go back and redo projects for their portfolio. I never could do that because it was over, it was done, you know, so just start new work. That's how you're going to learn. That's how you're going to gain the experience that you need, you know. I think it's amazing that you have this opportunity to have such a great education through Santa Monica College. Now it's time to go and do the work. So yeah, the learning will happen as you're practicing.
Absolutely. I would second that. And if you know what you want to do in kind of the broad umbrella of UX, awesome. If you don't, I would say, you know, try a lot in different areas and see what sticks with you, right? If you come from a visual background, that's great. Utilize that in UI design, or experiment with something different and actually go kind of deeper into the data with the user research. And so, you know, obviously, yeah, it's kind of hard to do sometimes, but it's worth it if you can kind of get a broad experience and see what really speaks to you. Absolutely. And yeah, theory is great, but practice is, yeah, it's definitely where it's at.
Well, I wanted to thank our guests for your time and energy, your positive energy and supporting us. So a round of applause for our guests. And then I want to say on behalf of both Maxim and Nicole, for our students, like it's you are the last group, so I can go a little bit off script here. I've known a lot of you and seen you progress both as people and designers, and we're just so proud of you, and it's been a pleasure getting to collaborate and work with you. So a big round of applause for you all, and congratulations. So that formally ends our student webinars. Tomorrow night, for those who are listening, we will have a grad show celebration. It's at 5 o'clock and we'll be streaming on YouTube where we can celebrate and raise a glass of something to this fine group of students. So thank you for everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Night. Great work, everyone.
Thank you all so much.
Good night.